Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to our training today on Wiley's tools and resources for authors. Thank you so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure to have you, and we are looking forward to sharing with you some of the tools that we have to support our authors and some of the resources that Wiley has around how to publish your work. My name is Mary Helen. I'm a customer training manager at Wiley, and I'm going to be in the background today helping support and produce the event. And I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers today, Sarah Garfunkel and John Pegum. Sarah is a marketing director on Wiley's researcher marketing team and leads the promotion of Wiley's products and services directly to researchers and authors to support them in all stages of their publication journey. She has been in the scholarly publishing industry for over a decade and with Wiley for 7 years. So we're super excited to have her speak. And John leads the author products and services group at Wiley. He's responsible for a suite of products, including Wiley Editing Services and Wiley Researcher Academy. These services support and educate authors and researchers to identify and achieve their publishing goals. So John has also been in the scholarly publishing industry for over a decade and at Wiley for just over 3 years. So also super excited to have John. I know we're looking forward to hearing them speak, but before I hand it over from them, a few more things from me. I'll go over some housekeeping items with you now. So this session is being recorded. So you're of course free to take notes, but know that you will receive a recording of this session in your inbox in about 24 hours. Those who can't be with us today but registered will also receive a copy of the recording. So be on the lookout for that. You'll also receive a certificate acknowledging your participation today, your attendance, that will come to your inbox as well in about 24 hours. So be on the lookout for that as well. And you can download the presentation from the handout section of your GoToWebinar panel. There's a little, there's a collapsible space that says handouts, and the slides that we're using today are linked there. So again, you're free to take notes, but you will certainly have that resource available to you. So even though this is a virtual session, of course, we're not face-to-face, we would still love to hear from you. So please use the question box in your GoToWebinar pane. It's a little collapsible area. It should be above the handouts to type in questions. If something's not clear, maybe if they're going too fast, the speakers are going too fast, I'm going to be monitoring that throughout the session. So please do communicate that way and raise your questions that you might have. So the last thing I'd like to touch on and do before handing it over to Sarah and John, I would love to launch a poll, which I'll go ahead and do now. And this is completely anonymous. You should see it on your screen now, which is how many papers have you published? Completely anonymous, just a way for us to get to know our audience a bit better today, tailor the presentation a little bit better to our audience's needs. So I'm going to give everybody a little bit of time to vote. Keeping an eye, again, very much just encourage everybody to vote. This is completely anonymous. Looks like we're slowing down a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to share the results with you all. It looks like 29% of you have not published your first paper, and that is okay. You are in the right place. We're definitely going to go through some introductory items and some things that hopefully will get you started. 42% 1 to 4 papers. That's great. Hopefully this will be some new information for you, maybe a refresher course. 13% 5 to 10 papers, and 17% over 11 papers. So that's great too. Some more experienced audience members, but hopefully you can still learn something and take away something today. And again, encourage you to ask questions if anything comes up that others might not think of who haven't had as much experience. So thank you again for voting. With that, I will hand it over to Sarah.
Okay, hello, I hope everyone can hear me and my camera is on. I am Sarah Garfunkel. I am a marketing director on Wiley's researcher marketing team, and our job is really to promote Wiley's product and services directly to researchers and authors so that they have support through all stages of the publication journey. From searching and discovering research on Wiley Online Library to finding the right journal to submit their paper to, all the way through submission, peer review, publication, and then finally promotion of your published articles. So I'm going to talk through a selection of products and services that Wiley offers for before and after submission. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability. And I'm also have, along with the colleagues on this call who will hopefully be able to provide you with the information you need. Okay, so I think we're ready to move to the next slide, which is featuring, that's the overview. Yeah, Wiley overview. We're going to go over a general overview of our author services, preparing and submitting your article, publishing your article, and then finally services that are available in terms of promoting your article and getting recognition and impact for your research. Okay, moving to the next slide. What we're looking at here is WileyAuthors.com, and that is the home for all of our author services and author resources. It is not only where you can find information about tools and services available to you, but it's also the same location that when you are an accepted author, and you have an article that's been accepted, you can go into Wiley Authors and log in and track the status of your article all the way through production into publication. This site hosts resources for every step along the way, from finding a journal to open access information and how to get or make sure that you are aware of your funding options. It also has information on new services, pilot programs that we have launched, as well as covering peer review, the different types of peer review, how to become a peer reviewer, and how to get training or learn how to conduct peer review. There's also resources for book authors and as well. So WileyAuthors.com is a publicly accessible site. Anyone can use it to help themselves in the publishing process. You don't have to be a Wiley author, although of course we hope you are, in order to benefit from all of the content that is developed and available to you on the site, and all of the information itself is free. Okay, I'm going to move into the next slide where we're going to talk about our journal finder. Wiley's Journal Finder is a tool that we link from WileyAuthors.com. It is a free tool that is currently in development, and this is a tool that can help you as an author find the right journal for your manuscript based on your scope and abstract. What you can do is copy and paste your abstract or a description of your manuscript into the tool, and then it will analyze the text and suggest relevant Wiley journals that may be suitable for submission. You can filter results by keyword, by subject area, whether the journal offers open access, and then you can also just search through title by title to see the key information. Okay, next slide. We also have a number of webinar series, not unlike the one you're attending today, that you can access from our author services site. And these are free recordings of webinars from subject area experts on many topics, including how to get published, promoting your research, finding the right journal, handling resubmission. So there's a number of opportunities there to learn and to go deeper into a specific subject that may be of relevance to you. Going on. I also want to highlight the Wiley Network, and this is almost like a blog content where we're going to post free content, videos, infographics, and just general articles, very time relevant usually, on the Wiley Network. There are hubs of content based on specific roles, so content specifically for researchers, editors, society leaders, for example, and contributors to this blog include employees of Wiley, guest editors, industry leaders, and we recognize that you as an individual may actually wear several hats. You may be a researcher, but also a journal, serve on a journal editorial board. You may belong to a society. And so there is content that is geared to all different aspects and may be relevant to various aspects of your career. Okay. And so now we're going to talk very specifically about the tools that we have to help researchers prepare and submit your article. The first tool that I want to talk about is really for authors who are in the writing stage. Through our Add Upon brand, we have Manuscripts, which is it's a free tool that is designed to help authors manage the writing process and collaborate with co-authors in real time. You can almost think of it as word, like any sort of regular word processing program, but it's designed specifically for scientific writing. And collaboration on scientific articles. So you have all the user-friendly sort of navigation and tools like you would in a regular word processing program like Word or Google Docs, but again, with specific features designed to help you manage your citations, format your paper through automated templates, including specific journals. And it has unique features to help you embed math and figures and video and audio directly into your manuscript file while you write. This is, again, a free service. Anyone can use Manuscripts for authoring any type of content, but it really is very useful for specifically writing journal articles. Next. Another free tool that we offer is called Authoria. It's another authoring system. It is a free online writing tool, but it's also a preprint repository. If you are interested, by the way, in preprints and learning more about preprints, there are webinars and information available about preprints. I highly recommend that you may want to explore that as you go across your publication journey. Authoria is also used to power our under review program, which is where at the time you submit your manuscript to a journal, you can also share it as a preprint while it is in the process of being under review. A number of Wiley journals do offer this service, and so that means your article, while it's being reviewed, can be published or posted as a preprint online before it's necessarily been accepted. You can also track the status of your paper as it goes through peer review on Authoria. The benefits of hosting a preprint on Authoria include that your article is assigned a DOI, a digital object identifier, and that means it's immediately fully citable, so you can share your research while you're waiting for it to be published. And this really does aid in the rapid dissemination of research in its early stages. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, John, who's going to talk a little bit about the services we offer for editing.
Great, thanks, Sarah. So Wiley Editing Services, the first thing to highlight, I think, is that despite the name, Wiley Editing Services is available to all authors. You don't have to be a Wiley author or intend to be a Wiley author to use Wiley Editing Services. And you can find us very easily at wileyeditingservices.com or just Google us. The site itself, when you get there, is divided into two broad areas, one around article preparation services and the other around article promotion services. And we'll talk about the promotion services a little bit later in this talk. But article preparation services are exactly as they sound. They're a selection of services, a suite of tools and services that are available that really help you get your article in the best possible state ready for submission, and with all the benefits of that to improve your chances of acceptance ultimately. So these are services that are not for free. They do come at a cost. And you can, whether you have grant funding yourself or if grant money available for this, you may also be able to access some of that, some funds that would be apportioned to this type of service at your institution as well. So it's worth looking into that. The cornerstone of Wiley Editing Services is editing itself, and the English language editing service has 3 different layers of service provision, really tailored to you, depending on the level of language correction or formatting, or improving the flow and structure of your paper. So you have a lot of choice and a lot of flexibility around the services themselves. But what you'll get back from Wiley Editing Services, anything from within the next day or the next 5 or 6 days, depending on your choice of delivery time, is a trackable Word document. So you'll see all the track changes that our subject matter expert that we've been matched with your paper has recommended for the paper. You can accept those changes or reject them if you see fit. And then you know full well that that paper is now in the best possible state and ready immediately for submission. There are other things that can also help get your paper to that place as well. Another common cause of desk rejection is manuscript formatting, that the format of the paper that's being delivered to the journal is not in compliance with those stated formatting guidelines. If you use Wiley Editing Services, we will get those guidelines for that individual journal, that's your target journal, and ensure that your paper complies with all of their formatting requirements. The same goes for illustrations, any charts or graphs, if they need to be in a particular format or there needs to be a particular style on the titles, we can ensure that that they meet those requirements for the journal. So as I say, all of these services really help you have confidence in the paper when you go to the journal page to actually submit it. And if you don't yet know which journal that should be, much like the journal finder tool that Sarah mentioned earlier, there's also a journal recommendation tool in Wiley Editing Services, but it's not just limited to Wiley journals. So with our journal recommendation service, we will take your paper, we will assess it, and understand based on your objectives around where you hope to publish in terms of an international journal or a high impact factor journal. We will survey the broad world of scientific publishing and come back with between 3 and 5 recommendations for titles that that your paper fits completely within the aims and scope. And then, as I say, from there, we can then also edit and provide the formatting so that you're ready to submit. And also say that in terms of improving the chances of acceptance, that is a tangible benefit of using Wiley Editing Services. We know, for example, from the papers that have gone through Wiley Editing Services and then gone on to be submitted to Wiley, the acceptance rate for those manuscripts is twice the general acceptance rates for all other papers submitted to Wiley. So you really do double your chances by using Wiley Editing Services, as well as saving the time and the headaches of some of those more tactical things and some of the drudgery that you have to go through in terms of getting your manuscript ready for submission. On the next slide, I think we've got some examples, but as I say, you can go to Wiley Editing Services itself and you'll see all of these, every single service has service examples. On the left you'll see what the language editing service looks like with those comments and suggested edits or changes. And on the right, that's the beginning, or it's part of a journal recommendation report with, I think it's about 5 journals that we've identified for this particular paper. So as I say, wileyeditingservices.com, the article preparation services can really help save time and headaches. And we'll talk a little bit more later about the promotional services. So I'll hand it back to Sarah.
Great, thank you. So moving on, speaking of submitting and finding an article or finding a journal for your article is our initiative that we call free format submission. This is relatively new within the last few years, and it's based on feedback from authors that they would like fewer requirements for submissions when they're submitting to journals. So as John mentioned, we have a lot of journals have very strict formatting requirements that might be specific to that journal. And throughout the process, if you submit an article and you need to then resubmit to a different journal, and you have, this might take multiple tries, that is a lot of requirements and burden on the author to continuously reformat your manuscript. And that takes a significant amount of time. So, however, right now, over 500 Wiley journals are now offering free format, which means we've simplified the formatting requirements for submission. And as an author, you are only required to format your manuscript specifically to that journal after acceptance. So you don't have to waste your time before you're accepted. It only would require work after acceptance. And the number of journals joining this initiative is growing constantly. As I've said, we now have over 500, which has doubled over the last few years. And we expect this to continue to grow. And it is very, very well received from authors who don't want to be continuously reformatting their article for submission. Next slide. And going along with this theme of simplified submission process is one of the really exciting products that we have at Wiley is called the Research Exchange. And it's a new submission platform that we are really excited about because of the impact it will have on our authors. Research Exchange, or as it's called called REX, it's an intelligent and very streamlined submission platform for authors. So typically, as you submit through one of the traditional submission systems, so you may be familiar with Scholar One or Editorial Manager, you have to copy and paste data, information from your manuscript into multiple different fields throughout the submission. Things that are available in your document then have to be copied and pasted into the system itself. That isn't a very user-friendly experience. And so what REX does is it changes it. It automatically will read the data from your uploaded manuscript files, pulling out key pieces that you then simply need to confirm. It will be able to extract, for example, your names, affiliations, your co-authors, and then it will then ask you, we found this, can you just confirm it, as opposed to having you need to rekey everything in. We launched this with our first journal in 2019, and we now over 400 journals published by Wiley use this platform. And there are more going online every week. You can visit wileyauthors.com for more information. And of course, when you are exploring your journal on the journal's homepage, it will indicate whether this journal uses REX for the submission platform. Again, positive feedback from authors in saying that this process really shortened the amount of time it takes to go through this actual submission. Okay, so right now I just want to go over some tips before you submit if you are thinking about publishing your first article or familiarity with the process. For example, when you are looking for a journal on Wiley Online Library, you will see a similar structure on each page or each journal's homepage. So for example, we're looking here at a nursing journal, and you can see the names of the editors for this journal up on top, the impact factor if the journal has one, very clearly, easily found the latest issue and articles when you scroll down the page, highlighted news, and then there's a button on the right-hand side where you can click to start the submission process, and that will take you to an online submission system where you can kick off the process. So as I mentioned, Wiley journals use a number of submission systems, Scholar One being one of the most popular, Editorial Manager, and then REX, which again, continuously growing for Wiley journals. Next slide. One of the really important things to also paying attention to is the author guidelines, which you can find typically under the contribute menu on a journal's homepage. It is, of course, really important to review the author guidelines of any journal you are considering to make sure that your submission is following the journal's instructions and includes all the right components. You don't want to go through the process only to discover you have to stop and include something else that you hadn't previously addressed. So highly recommend to go through the author guidelines, and we do try and make these as clear and accessible as possible. Next slide. You can also see, for example, the journal's aims and scope under the About menu, and this will give you a clear description of what type of research the journal publishes, both in content, but also article types. It may say not only what types of articles it will publish or research, but also what it doesn't necessarily publish. And so this will help you make sure that your manuscript is a good fit for that specific journal. It also may feature in the overview keywords, audience, or essentially who would be reading this journal, as well as where it is indexed. And so this is, of course, true for all journals or all authors. You want to always be paying attention to the journal scope to make sure that your paper would be a good fit and it will reach the desired audience. The About menu is also where you can find further information about the editorial board and any journal-specific relevant information that you might find helpful. Next. One of the features I wanted to bring out is something it's relatively new for a lot of our journals, in the sense of you will find under that About number details about the advantage of publishing open access. We have found that, for example, research articles that are published open access do typically receive more downloads, citation, and altmetric attention. And on these pages for the journals, which you will find in the About, you'll be able to get direct links to information on funder compliance, eligibility on funding, learning more about open access, as well as a direct link to learn about the specific costs and opportunities to publish open access with that journal. Next slide. So now that we've talked a bit about the submission, let's talk about the the circumstances that many authors find themselves in where they are not accepted by their first choice journal and they have to think of, or think about what to do next. So if a researcher isn't accepted at a first choice journal, Wiley does offer two services to help the author find a different journal and make the resubmission process easier. We understand that it can be time consuming to have to go through the process again, make decisions again. And that's why we want to make this process easier. More than half of our journals are part of a referral network, which is where editors can, if they are not accepting a paper, can recommend a researcher transfer their manuscript to a suitable Wiley journal that they have selected from, that they think would be a good match for that specific article. And in the case that the manuscript doesn't have an editor recommended referral, we do also have a service. It's called our Transfer Desk Assistant, which is an intelligent mapping tool that uses machine learning technology. It will analyze the manuscript and identify suitable alternate Wiley journals. These services are, of course, optional, but if an author does decide to accept a transfer invitation, the resubmission process is streamlined so that it can be easily transferred to a new journal without having to start over from scratch. And any peer review, if the article has gone out for peer review, would be transferred with it. And this can really help speed up the publication process for authors. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions that have been entered into the chat.
Yes, Sarah, it looks like we do have a few questions.
Okay.
One is about the acceptance rate for journals, if that's information that's available.
That is a really fantastic question. So as of now, the acceptance rates of journals are not necessarily publicly displayed, but I think that is a trend that is going to be changing, and that information is certainly out there at times, maybe not from an official source, but I would say stay tuned as more and more journals are starting to make additional journal metrics accessible and available to authors, because we understand that acceptance rate and another statistic like time to first decision are really important to authors, and we really do aim for transparency to help authors make the best informed decision on where to submit that is right for them.
Great, thank you. And here is another one. Is it possible to remove them from Authoria after the articles with new DOI are accepted?
So you're saying in the case that if you've published a preprint and your article either isn't accepted or can you take it down? I think that's what it is. And the answer to that is essentially, it is a part of the scholarly record. It is a DOI. There is a DOI to it. So no, you wouldn't necessarily take it down. But I do believe, for example, when you're if you do have an accepted article, that the DOI will then point to that accepted article. And I do believe you can post revisions. I would definitely defer to the information on Authoria, as well as when you are submitting to a journal, be aware of their preprint policies. Something that every author should be aware of is when they submit, making sure that if they do have their article as a preprint, being aware of what the policies are. The majority of Wiley journals do allow for preprints, and however, so definitely it is still a journal by journal policy.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we have one more question around acceptance time, which I imagine would vary from publication to publication. But if you could if you have any other details around that.
Yeah, so time to first decision or time to publication, there's all different aspects. Obviously there's the time when you submit and time to that first decision. That's going to of course vary journal by journal. Then of course from acceptance to publication is going to be another set. So the answer to that is it's going to vary. We all have the objective of getting the time between submission to publication as quick as possible. That is where in some cases that journal article transfer services can really be beneficial, in that it speeds up the process in going to your next submission, as well as if it's already gone out for peer review, that those peer reviews can travel with it, and that can additionally speed up that process, because we know often there are authors who really are looking to have their work published as soon as possible. Again, that's one of those metrics out there that there's different policies publisher by publisher on how those are calculated to even displayed or not. I would say over the next over time there is definitely a move towards more transparency on those times, and that that will be more publicly accessible in the future.
Great, thank you. And then one more around the transfer option. How often do you happen to know is that available?
Oh, sure.
And kind of how long? Yeah.
So as I said, like well over half of Wiley journals do participate in some form of referral network, whether it be editor-driven referrals to journals or the transfer desk. And I would say the goal is that any paper, if it is not accepted at the first choice journal, is to offer an option. Right now, I would say about 85% of papers that are submitted to journals who participate in TDA are offered a transfer to another Wiley journal. And our goal is, to continuously increase the number of journals participating in these two, as well as increase that number of articles that do receive matches and transfer offers. I think that answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much. Please do continue to come in with the questions. These are great. It looks like that's all we have for now, so I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay. So next slide. Okay. So once your article has been accepted, authors can log into the Author Services dashboard. I think you can go to the next slide, actually. Yes. You can log into the Author Services dashboard on WileyAuthors.com, and this is where you can track your article through production and publication, sign your license, and make any open access payments as needed. This is also where you can view article metrics specific to your article, like citations after the article is published. When you are accepted, authors will get an invitation to register or log in, and you'll be able to utilize your dashboard so you can see what the status of production, as well as see any past or current articles, your citation counts, or this is also where you can share get links to share your article to share with colleagues and peers. Okay, next slide. One of the things I'll also talk about is, throughout the production process, we've launched an online HTML proofing system, and this is replacing the older PDF-based proofing process. This means that as an author, you can mark up your manuscript, and editors can see notes all in one place. Okay. The next thing is, when it becomes time for the researcher to sign the license for their articles, this is also something that is done directly in Author Services using an online tool. And then it's stored in a repository in your account, so it can be viewed and accessed at any times. This is so, it can be done in just minutes, it's fast, it's automatic, and offers the options, Creative Commons license for the choice of open access as well. Next, we are going to talk a little bit about promoting your article and the tools and products we have. And so I will be turning it back to John.
Great, thanks very much. Right, so after all of that, you may feel like you've gone through the submission process, you've signed your license, you've done all your online proofing, and you've finally gotten published. It's time to sit back and celebrate, and it certainly is. But there are a few things that you can do at this stage now, once your article has appeared online or in print or both, to really, really maximize the attention and the audience that your article is reaching. And obviously your journal, your publisher, your society, if the journal is associated with the society, and the editors of the journal will also be doing some of this promotional work. But from an author's perspective, there's some things that you can do to really ensure that you're reaching a broader but still relevant audience of peers and colleagues. And Wiley Editing Services, as I mentioned earlier, the other half of the website is all about these services, these tools that we can create for you, that you can use to promote your work. And we've probably all been consumers of this type of content, and the way that you will have learned about papers and recently published articles that you yourself will find relevant and interesting. And there's lots of different ways, whether it's through social media or through blogs, that you've gotten those notifications. But I think you'll probably also have encountered some of the newer forms of scholarly communication and scholarly outreach that are going on, which have really, really increased in the last decade or so. And these are things that really help to kind of synthesize an article, make it very easily and quickly understood and digestible, and so that you as a reader can understand very, very clearly and apparently whether you need to engage with this article in greater depth. And those sorts of things like video abstracts or video shorts or infographics or even lay summaries that really help to communicate the importance and the relevance and the significance of an article, but in a very clear, understandable, and most importantly, quickly digestible way. Wiley Editing Services is able to, again, at a fee, at a cost, is able to produce those digital assets that you may not have the time or the technical or even the design skills or abilities to produce yourself. But by using Wiley Editing Services, you can have a video which you can share on social media, you can create an infographic which can be shared on Twitter or printed out and shared at conferences. Lay summaries and research news stories are really great ways at putting your article and the importance of your article into non-technical language, so that you're able to engage with a broader audience. And particularly in health sciences, we know that being able to communicate with the lay audience, the non-technical, non-specialist audience, to get the importance of new research findings across is very, very important. And they do come with tangible, measurable benefits. those authors and those articles that have video abstracts or infographics get higher altmetric scores and garner greater full text views than those articles in the same issues that don't have those assets to help them promote themselves. And on the next slide, again, as with article preparation services, you can go to wileyeditingservices.com. It's all very clear and straightforward and transparent in terms of the service delivery, what features are included in each service, how long it will take, what we will need sort of from you in terms of our scientific writers and our designers to be able to make sure that we're representing your scholarship in the right, most appropriate way, and that you're satisfied with the finished product. And you'll get to see some samples of all of them. So there's a couple of videos on the left there and a couple of infographics on the right. So again, Wiley Editing Services really helps at both ends of the entire publication journey, right at the very beginning when you're preparing your manuscript and getting it ready to and finding the right home for your research, and right at the very end after it's been published. And you're looking in this post-publication world of reaching out and reaching that wider audience. And I think I'll hand back to Sarah, who will tell you a bit more about other things that you can be doing to reach that audience.
Yes, thank you. So one of the most recent developments is that a number of Wiley journals are participating in a pilot project where the final version of the articles published are also deposited and made accessible directly onto ResearchGate. ResearchGate, I'm going to guess most people are, or most researchers are familiar with, is one of the largest scholarly platforms where researchers both consume and discover content. And so in this, again, we make it so that researchers can easily share their research on ResearchGate without worrying about copyright restrictions or having to spend time responding to requests that they may see through ResearchGate individually. Currently, this pilot is in its second phase, which features content from nearly 60 of our open access journals and 85 subscription hybrid open access journals. That means that as a ResearchGate user, if you have access to a subscription journal content, you can access it through your institution and access the full text final articles directly on ResearchGate without needing to authenticate your access or leave the site. And so this is something that's the pilot's been for about a year. And we, will be evaluating, and something that researchers have definitely told us they appreciate in terms of making their article content and deposited automatically. Okay. Next slide. And then finally, as mentioned, Wiley Author Services does go over on all the author promotional tools that are available, including the services that John just talked about. And there is a free downloadable toolkit to help researchers give tips and suggestions on how to get your article noticed, seen, read, and cited, which we know is the goal for the majority of researchers, is that their work makes impact. Okay. One of the things that's actually very exciting that we hope everyone who's an author at Wiley is aware of is that within that author services dashboard, you can generate a unique sharing link for your article that will give anyone free access to a full text read-only version of the article. And that allows you to share this read-only version with an unlimited number of people. So for example, you create that share link and you can put it on your personal website or on social media. And again, that will grant anyone access to the article, but it won't be downloadable. So that's one way we want to facilitate our authors in their dissemination of their research and ensuring that they can have the impact that they desire. Next slide. Finally, we want to mention we are a partner with Kudos, which is a website where authors can share your articles with plain language explanations. links to additional resources, summaries, and this can really help in the accessibility of your content, not necessarily someone being able to get access to the full text, but in the summary, in the plain language, it can help expand the reach of your article content. Wiley Authors get a free Kudos account, and if you've registered through Wiley Author Services, you can get access to an enhanced dashboard that will include details such as weekly full text download numbers for your articles. Okay, so that in the end wraps it up. As I've mentioned, you know, if you're looking for more information on any of these topics, you can find that all of these services and information for authors on wileyauthors.com. And again, I'll open it up to any additional questions that have come in.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Sarah and John. We do have a couple other questions today to sort of wrap us up. So one is around timing again. With regard to the time aspect, is there a different policy for processing time between a general submission in comparison to a submission to a special issue? Would the special issue have limited time to process journals given the predetermined publication of the special issue?
While I won't say there is a rule, but I will say special issues do tend to have expedited review and publication scenarios. There often are, obviously, there are guest editors, and so there's a lot of benefits to submitting and publishing an article into a special issue. One of them is that these articles tend to have and I will say that is not a general rule, but an overall statement, that they do tend to have faster periods of both time and publication. Any additional questions?
Awesome, thank you so much. Yes, we have one around copywriting. So if I understand this correctly, can the author that has copyright for open access article, I guess if the author has the copyright, maybe can the article be published elsewhere? I believe is the question.
Published elsewhere. Not quite sure I understand.
Okay. If you could, Ashutosh, if you are still on, if you could maybe clarify, let me type an answer that they can clarify that as well. And then we do have another question. If a published article is not open access, can one share the read-only article on the link?
Yes, that is exactly what that can be used for. If it is not open access, you can use that the link that you generate in your in the Author Services dashboard to create a read-only version, and that then can be shared with colleagues, peers, placed and made available. Going back to the copyright question, I'm wondering if perhaps it's about copyright use, I'm sorry, or reuse. What I will say is that there is extensive information on the different types of copyright and the rules for different copyrights, licenses on WileyAuthorServices.com. When in doubt, I definitely recommend going through and reading either on the journal's specific author instructions or overview, or on Wiley Author Services. And if there's any questions, do reach out to the editorial staff who can help clarify any questions regarding use, reuse of article content.
Okay, great. And this person, it looks like, did clarify that few of the revised papers have been published in different journals. So I guess, I don't know if that's a question still around copyright or usage rights.
When in doubt, I would always refer back to your perhaps the journal editor, editorial board for clarification if it's a concern on, you know, reusing your own work versus publishing iterative work. That is one I'm not necessarily feel like I could answer succinctly, but I would, you know, direct it out towards the editorial board of your journal if there are any concerns.
Great. And then another question that we have is around cost. Regarding Wiley editing services, although they are extremely useful, are there any other options that might change the cost for some researchers who might be self-funded?
That's a great question, and we, at the moment, we don't have that sort of ability to have discretionary pricing potentially based on your geographic region. So the price that you see on the site is the full price, and it's a globally applied price as well. Like I say, there are funds available very often within an institution for these sort of associated publishing fees, whether they're in your department or potentially within the research department or from the library. It's definitely worth speaking to colleagues and peers at your institution to see if there are available pools of funding that you can avail of.
Okay, great. It looks like those are the only questions we have for now. I might give everybody another few seconds or so if anyone is maybe in the midst of typing a final question before we wrap up. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anything else. Do encourage everyone to please reach out if you do think of other questions. Thank you again to Sarah and John for an awesome presentation. Hopefully this was useful. I'm not sure if either of you if you had any final remarks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thanks everybody for attending, and please do download the presentation. Be on the lookout for the recording in your inbox, and we will see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.